Oh, is that on? Test. Well, it's 9 o'clock. Okay. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order this morning. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach. Today is Monday, November the 7th. All council members are present. The town manager, the town attorney, the town clerk, and lots of folks from the town. I'm sure they're here for they're a little late for the breakfast, but you're early for the lunch, and I'm sure that's why. But it's good to have everybody here. So we'll start as always with the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Be with us today as we consider and take actions for the overall good and of the town of Fort Myers Beach. Help us choose the wisest and best direction to take, and help us arrive at those directions with interactions that are dignified, respectful, and well-informed. Thank you all for the solemn honor of serving the public in our roles, and continue to bless those who are fortunate to live here and work here. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is the approval of the final agenda. Is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I would like to pull the consent agenda for discussion item.
Okay.
I'll move to amend my motion to approve to include that.
Amend my second.
Okay, it's been amended and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we move on. Number one, I want to thank Sean and Bob and Rebecca for having us here this morning. This is a terrific venue to have our meeting, but more importantly than the meeting itself, it's a tremendous symbolic event for the town and for the island. It's the first restaurant to reopen since the storm, and that gives us hope. That gives us all hope. So again, I want to thank the partners and the manager for having us, and I hope you all will hang around and have a little lunch with them, and of course patronize them. You know how good the food is here, so I don't have to tell you that. So thank you again. Is Sean here? Sean, you want to? And Bob's here too. You guys want to come up for a minute? You got. Come on. Come. Bob Rommel, ladies and gentlemen, is also one of our state representatives from down in Collier County, and his partner Sean is a restaurateur extraordinaire. They both are. So I'll give you the floor, Bob.
Thanks, Mayor, and your team. Obviously 5 weeks ago, none of us knew what was going to happen, and as the owner of the restaurant, co-owner with Sean, we didn't know we'd ever open. As a matter of fact, just like all of you, when you came to your home, we looked around and basically said, I don't think we can ever open again. And, after a few days, piece by piece, literally cleaning up ourselves, doing repairs ourselves that we can, because we're not super handy. Here we are. And then when Roger and the mayor asked, hey, would you be able to help us with the city council meeting? We had a goal. We really had a goal to get open as fast as possible, to give people hope, to give our employees hope, because everybody needs to get back to work. And maybe there's a reason that our building is still standing. I'm not sure why, and hopefully over the next few years we'll realize it. But we're proud to be here for the island. We're proud to be part of the rebuild, and looking forward to it. I know everybody's going through some hardship, whether it's here, but we will get through it, and we're happy to be here. And Sean has helped coordinate with everybody. I mean, just to get electricity, water, temporary internet, rabbit ear TV downstairs. We're going to do the best to serve the community. You're going to have to probably be a little patient. We don't know if we're going to have a lot of customers or a little. The menus change, but we're trying to adapt, and we'll keep adapting to serve you all. And we're still a lot of prayers out there for all of you. So we're going to help you recover. So thanks for being here.
And as far as the restaurant's concerned, what our goal is going to be for the community right now, we have an abbreviated menu. We have abbreviated hours right now because of curfew. We're going to adapt and adjust as we hear from everybody on the beach what they think they need. We have the same chef who is doing super fine high dining, but we're going to put in, we think the community probably needs a place that is more everyday place to go. And we're hoping that maybe we can expand that a little bit to breakfast, if there may be a need for people to have a breakfast too. So we're going to have a menu that I think fits the majority of people on the island for the most amount of time, so that it can be used often. And we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to the feedback. Again, we don't know how many people we're going to have here, so it's going to be interesting. Just like there was no manual really to figure out how to get boats off the mangroves and piled on top of each other. There's really no manual to running a restaurant opening up like this in this situation. So we're going to do our best. Our prayers are out for everybody. We know everybody's going through some hardship, and we're going to do our best to make it a little bit easier. Upstairs, our downstairs bar is a fantastic place to sit, have a bite to eat. If you're looking at the TVs, or you're in the bar area down there and looking out, and you don't look too far, you wouldn't know there anything was going on right now. And I think that's a nice thing to get away from all the things on the island that we're looking at all the time. So thank you all for coming, and I'll turn it over.
Excuse me, Sean, before you, Mr. Mayor, if I could just ask a question. Sean, you left out a couple quick things I want to ask you about, because we've got a lot of folks that are watching via the internet.
Okay.
Could you tell people where exactly your restaurant is located, and also what we're seeing out this window here? And also give everybody a sense of what your hours are going to be.
Okay. We're located on Estero Boulevard in the center of Fort Myers Beach, behind the Publix. We're right on the Estero Bay. We look out over the water. We have 2 floors. Our hours right now are currently going to be from 11 o'clock till approximately 6:30. That will change as far as when curfews change. We would like I said, we'd like to maybe open for breakfast in a not too distant future. If we feel like if the town lets us know there's a need, or the community has a need for it, we will do that also. So right now we're playing it by ear.
And how can people keep track of what your progress is in terms of hours and what you're serving? Do you have a website?
We have a website, www.bayfrontbistro.com.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, one more item of housekeeping here is the extension of the emergency declaration that we had here. So we have a resolution before us, 22-38, extending this. I'll read it's a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending and extending the proclamation that a state of local emergency exists because of the catastrophic impacts caused by Hurricane Ian, providing for conflicts, providing for Scrivener errors, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. So this is basically just an extension. Vice Mayor.
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the next item is public comment.
John R. King. Following John will be Bruce and Susan Werner.
Good morning, John R. King, 8402 Estero Boulevard. Let me start by thanking you, Madam Vice Mayor, for your service to our town and service to this council. We didn't always agree on issues, but I have always appreciated your kindness towards me. I appreciate how you offered help with those cumbersome campaign disclosure forms. Best wishes to you and your family as you move forward and enjoy your new free time. That being said, I wouldn't be me without saying this. I think the council missed a great opportunity to bring some much needed relief as well as goodwill to residents and taxpayers when last week you voted against waiving permitting fees. Councilman Allerholt, thanks for trying. To you both, I'll just say help is about a day away. I hope I can be a part of that help. Either way, I'll be there as Fort Myers Beach reemerges and resumes its renaissance. Thank you.
Next.
Bruce and Susan Werner, and following Bruce and Susan is Amy Lowry.
Morning.
Good morning. Bruce and Susan Warner, 295 Ohio Avenue, Fort Myers Beach. Been here 4 years. I have a question that I've discovered the town of Fort Myers Beach repair/improvement repair form. I first found the 2020 version, then I looked up and found the 2022 version. I've copied it, I've digested it. We've ceased and desisted doing anything else until we find out, is that form enforceable, and will you enforce it, and is that determining the factor for us as residents whether we can rebuild under the 50-50 rule or the obvious new code building. So that's where we are. We just can't go forward or backward.
I understand your situation. We'll have an answer for you later on, sir.
Great.
We'll put that on the list and get to it for you.
I've
Appreciate
emailed compliments of Eva's directions to me by email. I've emailed those questions and my concerns and frustration or whatever,
Okay.
unknown, to Andrew and Stephen. I
Okay.
think that's the proper.
Yep.
I don't know.
No, you're in the right ballpark there.
But thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Amy Lowry.
Excuse me, could you ask the people to move the mic closer? We really couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, that was unusual. That was a couple. They were kind of split apart. So
What did you rephrase it? I know it was over 50 rule, right?
yeah, it was regarding the 50-50 rule, where they stand in their particular case to that rule. So that was kind of pertinent just to them, really. But okay.
Good morning, Amy Lowry. First off, found the form for recreational vehicle mobile home vendors. And I think we need a little bit of clarification. And so that's why I'm here today. One question or one issue that we have in particular, and our neighbor's going to have the same issue, is it says that we have to be parallel to our property. If we get a 40-foot fifth wheel and put it on our property and it's only 75-foot wide, that's pretty hard for contractors to get in and to be able to build a house behind our fifth wheel. So we're looking to see if there is some way that when we do our site plans that we're allowed to pull them in the same direction of our driveway rather than facing this way, putting us along it. Our neighbor's driveway actually is more difficult. We have two entrances. They have one center. If they put theirs across it, they'd be across their driveway, which would mean to rebuild their home, the same issue would happen. Contractors would have to drive basically through our right of way on our property, our side setbacks and all to get into their property. So if we could park going in straight rather than across, that would be a huge benefit for some of us and make construction easier. I don't know how to build a house behind a trailer. You know what I mean? If we're blocking it. And of course, we all know what it's like when construction is going on anyway. Everybody's trying to get in driveways. If you can't use the driveway because we're parked all across it, obviously that's going to make a bigger cumbersome effort out on Estero Boulevard for some of us. The other thing is we need some clarification on item E. It says must be placed on a solid concrete slab, pavers, or similar hard surface. Then it says stabilized surface or a tarp placed under the vehicle or structure. So what is it? Can I get away with a tarp? Can I put rocks, or do I need concrete or pavers? It's kind of loosely written there. So we want to make sure that we put down whatever median that you guys would like. So if we could just get a little clarification on that, because obviously concrete versus a tarp is a big difference. And it says similar hard surface or stabilized surface, but then a tarp, well, I don't think a tarp's a very stabilized surface. So those are my only 2 points. If we could just get a little bit more clarification on those for the process. Thanks.
Good. Thanks, Amy. We'll get you some answers. I'm glad you're moving along on your rebuild already. That's very encouraging. Next.
Sylvia Steiger.
Good morning, Sylvia Steiger, 330 Jefferson Court. I have one question which I couldn't find out over the internet about the owner building permits. What permits can we pull, respectively, what permits not? That's all. Otherwise, thank you for your service. You're doing a great time.
Thank you, Sylvia.
That's all I have signed up.
That's it. Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak? No? Seeing none, we'll move on. The next item is local achievements and recognitions. Start to my left, Councilman Veach.
Today for this sense of expediency.
Councilman Adderholt.
It's just too many people to thank, but I'll defer as well as Councilor Veach had said.
Okay, I just have one. I just want to tell you a little story. It was pretty heartwarming to me, and the heroes were really two linemen from FP&L. So we were made aware of the first temporary pole that was going up on the beach, first legal one. So they wanted me to come down and take a look at it and so forth, and get some pictures of it. So I did. I went down, and there's a couple there, John and Marcia, whose house was blown away, and they had a small camper there, and they were living in that on their driveway, and without any power. John is a paraplegic in a wheelchair, and Marcia, his wife, was taking care of him. So it had taken them forever to get the power for one reason or another, and there was a day there, the day before or something. It was particularly warm last week, and I think they said it was almost 100 degrees inside this van. You know, that they had to open up the windows and so forth. So we went down just to look at that T-pole, and here all of a sudden, here comes FP&L, and this was not planned at all. They just happened to show up at that very moment and hook these folks up. So it was very very heartening to me, and they had terrific attitudes. I mean, the John in his wheelchair, never had a crossword, never said anything, and he was very positive, optimistic, as was his wife Marcia. So that made my week. So I just thought I'd share that with you all, and thank those two linemen for hooking them up. Those guys they got the whole island hot for us, but it's going to be on a hand-to-hand combat now, house to house, and when you see them, thank them, because they're really doing a good job for us out there, and I certainly appreciate it. So thank you for bearing with me on that story, Vice Mayor.
I just want to let people know I've been commuting from Charlotte County, and I'm still hearing some murmurs of complaints regarding debris removal here on the island. And for those of you who haven't been that far afield, I want you to know that there are piles of debris east of 75 in Charlotte County for miles. It's not just here. People are suffering far inland, counties away from us. There are only so many trucks to go around. Those people up there would like their debris removed as well. They have suffered greatly. There are people out of their homes there as well. So just to put things in perspective, sometimes we get a little tunnel vision going on and forget that people are suffering in other areas miles away from us as well. Just wanted to share that with you all.
Thank you. Councilman Allers.
I'll defer as well this week for the sake of time.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which was pulled. Am I right? Oh, no, excuse me. I skipped the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes before us. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the Thursday, October 20th, 2022 meeting? It's been moved. Is there a second? I'll second it. Discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. The minutes are approved. Okay. Next item is the consent agenda, which Councilman Allers asked to be pulled. So Councilman Allers, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just got a couple of things on it. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that we gave direction to staff a couple weeks ago about having a weekly meeting throughout the rest of at least the FEMA designated reimbursement time. But I see that we only have 2 meetings, one scheduled for the 21st and one scheduled for December 5th for the rest of the entire year. I'd like to see that amended to follow what we gave direction to staff a couple weeks ago to continue the weekly meetings, whatever day that is, if for nothing else to to get information out to the public that's seeking some answers. Also, I think it might be best to put this off until after the election with the new council. I think they should have some input on these dates, as it may or may not affect their schedules.
Anyone else?
See, I have a conflict on January 17th, which is a Tuesday, with an outside group, a climate initiative, which is part of my council duties. They've been chasing this around for a while, and then the hurricane took it away. But yeah, the 17th is a solid conflict for me.
I would, Mr. Mayor, agree in the sense that I think the weekly meetings are very helpful. I think it's an opportunity for the public to ask questions, for the council to reflect many of the questions that we're receiving from constituents and get timely answers. I think each of the meetings that we've have been extremely informative, particularly when we get to the question and answer period. And I would support continuing with the weekly meetings as well.
All right.
Depending on what your goal is, we could also, I wouldn't be adverse to that, but maybe having every other one a management and planning meeting. We can discuss things more in depth, answer questions.
That sounds like a good idea to me. We can a little more freewheeling here, where we can really start getting into the meat and potatoes of these issues. We haven't really been getting too deep into it thus far at these meetings. So anyhow, what's the verdict?
Would it
here
require a
with the-
motion, John, if I want to essentially, I know as I said before, we had already given direction to staff to have a weekly meeting, at least through the end of the year or whenever the FEMA expires, and revisit it then. And I don't disagree with Councilor Veach's opinion about at least having one of those meetings be a management and planning session.
Yes, you can make a motion, although I do think that we may have a date on the FEMA timeline. But yes.
My question is, what does the FEMA expiration have to do with our meeting dates?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do. I was just trying to put some sort of a potential end time as to when we wouldn't have to meet or revisit it. Certainly don't necessarily need to use the FEMA guideline. If it gets extended, it gets extended. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But there's obviously a lot of things that are changing daily that I think our residents would like to hear from us. And if as a council, we can provide policy decisions much faster as opposed to 2 meetings for the rest of the year, I think it would benefit us as well as the residents.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I would make a motion to continue having a weekly meeting through the end of the year, with the final meeting of the month, we'll say, be a management and planning session, that would give us time for the first 3 meetings of the month to be able to get all of our talking points that we would hear from public comment and from emails and calls and in-face meetings, to be able to discuss all of that at the end of the month and move forward with the next month of questions. Long-winded motion, I know.
I'll second that. And I just sort of just a question as I second it. So it would be a regular meeting then next week, and then the regular scheduled meeting, the 21st for that week. And then the following week would be an M&P meeting. Is that what the motion is?
Yeah, I mean, if we keep it Mondays, that way everybody can make their schedule work. We know what time, 9 o'clock. We don't necessarily know that it'll be here. I don't know if it'd be here or not every time, but the to be determined is fine. But I think if we could stick with the 9 a.m. meetings on Monday weekly going forward, and the last one being the M&P meeting of the month, which would be the 28th.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
You know, I agree with the idea, but I would just prefer to put the 14th as an M&P. I just think there's little, the M&P meetings can be more forward looking. And even though there's ways to answer questions, I think there's some issues that we really need to discuss going forward when people are getting ready to rebuild, particularly commercial, that I'd like to see us break down in more depth. So I agree with the concept. I just think that maybe every other meeting should be an M&P so we can be very forward looking for our meetings. And if anyone has questions, they can certainly email those questions to council and we can bring those up during an M&P.
And I agree with that exactly, Bill, what you said. We really need to get into some M&Ps where we can start really discussing these things amongst us. So I'm going to amend your motion, Councilman, to have the next meeting that you're interested in, but have it as is proposed here, with next week's meeting being a meeting.
He can.
And Mayor, was that going to be on the 17th or on a Monday? Do you have it?
The next meeting after the election has to be a meeting, not an MMP, because you certify election results. So if I was understanding you, you were suggesting it be an MMP?
I was, yes. So,
Is there something, John, that's correct, huh? Okay.
okay, I'll withdraw the suggestion.
So I don't have a problem. Maybe then instead of the next meeting, we can go the meeting after that. So the first and the third meeting of the month then would be M&P meetings. It's just shifting it to align with what has to be done. Would that be amenable?
Yeah, so this is the first one, and then the third one.
So, well, if we have a meeting next week, it would have to be, because it's after the election. Is that what you said, John? It would have to be a normal meeting?
Yes, it has. Well, you do need to have a normal meeting. And I would recommend it be the next one after the election to certify the election, swear in the new members.
Okay, so then we've got a lot of motions out there.
Sure. So I'm just saying, so really now we're talking about, since you want to wait until we get the new council seated before we go forward with the schedule, then the only motion is to have a meeting next week on Monday.
If that makes it easier, I will amend my motion to have a meeting next Monday. So table this until our meeting next Monday. Would that be easier?
That would be acceptable as well. And I don't know if the manager wanted to speak to the issue.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what the manager has to say.
So the reason we put forth this item was for the purpose of having our regular council meeting schedule. And that the item is drafted continues a past practice of our regular meeting schedule. Council meeting on the first and third Monday of the month, a M&P on the first Thursday of the month. The requests to have additional meetings, or what I would call special meetings, you can have those every day if you want to. And they could either be M&P or council meetings as you determine the need for those. And so I want to be clear, this item was to set forth a regular council meeting schedule going forward. If you feel there's an ongoing need for special meetings due to the hurricane or any other reason, of course, you all have the prerogative to schedule those, and we'll have as many of those as you would like to have.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Roger, and I completely understand trying to get back to a sense of normalcy. But I wouldn't say that it was a suggestion that was put forth to staff at the meeting a couple meetings ago. It was a direction to have meetings weekly. The consensus of the majority, at least of the council, was to have a meeting every week. I would still like to move forward with having a week, at least till we get through a little bit more of this. The more meetings we can have, the better off. I think both the staff, the residents, and this council will be informed as to decisions and things that are going to be coming forth. So I'll stick to my motion to have the meeting next Monday, table this until a regularly scheduled meeting next Monday at 9 a.m. at a place to be determined.
I'll second that.
You know, when you proposed it, Councilman, you said it was for FEMA. It's not for FEMA. It's not for FEMA. Why don't you just tell us what your intentions are here with changing this meeting schedule?
I brought it up a couple of weeks ago because I think it's important that our residents see us and hear from us at least once a week so that we can address their concerns publicly and try to give some staff direction.
Okay.
That's my,
All right.
that's my
Okay.
direction.
Okay. There's no need for applause. Thank you very much. Okay. We'll go with that then. We'll go with that, Councilman. Okay. There's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? I object. Anyone else? The motion carries with 4-1 with Murphy objecting. Okay, the next item is the items for discussion. The first item is the restoration of Fort Myers Beach. I'll open it up to whoever wants to discuss this.
Well, I'll start off because I've got a couple concerns. One is just generally safety on the island. I have not been able to find testing for the Gulf, but there was a professor at the FGC Water School who had an article, and he defined the San Carlos Bay as poop soup. There's serious water quality issues. I do see people posting pictures or being out on the beach, having their dogs in the water. Places like Newton Park now are full of holes. There's big, huge gaps in around the seawall on both sides of the seawall. I think maybe it'd be useful, Roger, if we could put up some signs telling people to stay out of the water, or maybe cordon off places like Newton Park where there's so many hazards. I know the whole island is a hazard, but it just seems like some of this public property, we could at least mark that off so people don't wander through and park there and get in potential danger.
Okay. Anyone else?
I've got a litany of questions, Mr. Mayor. Do you want me to save those for council items, or do you want me to go ahead and these are just questions that various constituents have had that I was going to.
Well, I mean, if they pertain to the restoration project, it's
Okay.
you're welcome to discuss it now.
In no particular order, Roger and or staff, however you want to yield if you don't know the answer. Just had a number of questions about, I think we've talked about this, Roger, or maybe you have staff here that could help you with this. On the first floor, you're not allowed to put utilities when you rebuild for that first floor. Could you elaborate a little bit on what that means, or have somebody elaborate on that as your building folks here?
No, they're not here. They're out working, but the idea, of course, is not to have repetitive losses. So the idea is to create a area where if there is another storm surge, and like we see the experience of the newer homes on the beach, which was basically that they had some minor property damage. They lost their garage and storage areas, but none of the vital elements of their home hopefully got damaged.
Yeah, the person wasn't being critical. They were just trying to understand what that term means and what they can and can't have on the first floor as it respects to the word utilities.
Well, again, it depends a lot about their individual property and where they would like to put it versus where they're going to put it, and where they have to put it, I should say. So it's hard to give a blanket explanation, but I would suggest if you have that constituent, reach out to us. We'll try to give them some guidance.
So along those lines, because I get the same question, is it if you have an elevated home in a legal non-conforming apartment downstairs that got wiped out, can you put that legal non-conforming apartment back on the ground floor?
The answer is that would have to come to council and you would have to agree to that. But the reason it's legal, when something is legal non-conforming, it means that when it ceases its use for whatever reason, you don't get to do it automatically. The council gets another chance to review that, and consider that.
So that means not
They would have-
for,
they would
so,
have Come to the council with an exception.
okay. And the same thing goes for setbacks and whatever other things.
Everything else in
part of
our planning and zoning code, yes.
Roger, if we could walk through in a little bit more granularly this electric, the certification by an electrician. The electrician comes out, certifies that the building is safe or the home is safe, and then sends that to the town. That gets blessed. But if work is required, is it a two-step process from the electrician? Do they send in an initial report that they've looked at it, and then do they send a second one saying that all the stuff has been fixed? And there was a rumor floating around the town that the town is now, I don't think it's true, but I just want you to be able to clarify it, that the town's now requiring a full rewire of homes that were flooded. Would you talk a little bit about that process and what the town is looking for from the electrician's report, and when it's actually approved and when it's not approved? What some of the challenges you've seen with the electrician's report, just to help people have some guidance in that process?
Okay, so at this point, probably the majority of properties that can receive electricity or have been submitted their information, their structural and electrical inspection to gain electricity. So probably we're in the 80+% of those properties right now. The reason we've requested the inspectional report is not only for the town's use, but for the property owner's use, so that they could read that report and see what the electrician is recommending for their own health and safety. Electrician tells the town that the property can receive electricity, and we use that along with the structural inspection to as a benchmark to authorize FP&L to give the property electricity. That doesn't mean that there aren't repairs or things that don't need to be done, and those are done under electrical permit. That it can be obtained at the same time, or it could be obtained at a later date.
So just again, from a layperson's perspective, if the electrician says that the home is safe to take power, but there's still some work that needs to be done, the town would give the blessing for FP&L to go ahead and hook them up. Is that? I know there's probably specific cases,
the wording that each person puts in their inspection report is different. In some cases, they've said don't give it electricity. In some cases, only give it electricity when a permit has been issued. In some cases, they said it's okay to receive permit. There's a variety of language that they use. We're looking for the language that simply says house can take power now. And if it says that, we accept that at face value based on the person being a licensed electrician, and we authorize FP&L to give it power now.
And I think we touched on this the last meeting, but I think just continuing to clarify it is helpful. So obviously the structural engineer piece is uniform for everybody. Everybody needs that, and that's got to be sent to the town, and it has to be approved. If someone has submitted their structural engineer report, but has not submitted their electrical or their electrician report, can they or are they eligible to get water?
The answer is we've made water available on every single street. We do not hold back a delivery of water purely for missing the electrical report, if that's your question.
So if a condo or any commercial, is it the same for condos and commercial properties? If they have a structural engineer's report that says they're okay, but they don't have an electrician's report submitted, they could theoretically still be eligible to have water come to the building, assuming someone's there to be there when it's turned on to make sure there's no flooding?
Yeah, in that case, we'd like to have a specific request, but yes, because we want to make sure that we don't create other damage. And in the absence of an electrical report, it could create other problems for for the building or people in that building. So we would want a specific request, but we could turn on the water.
And when you say a specific request, what would be the best way to format that? Would it be to say, hey, we've got our structural engineer report in, we've got serious electrical challenges, but we would like water to be turned on to our building so we can power wash and begin to do some cleaning, but we are more than happy to be present. We want to be present when the town comes out. Is that the way it would procedurally happen? How would they approach the town most efficiently for everybody?
They contact our utilities department and make that request by email.
Okay, by email. And have you heard anything anecdotally as to how Comcast and CenturyLink are doing with respect to internet on the island? Have you heard just anybody discuss it or progress?
I know that they're working on it, and we could reach out to them and get a report or an update and share it with everybody.
I think last I went on their website, it was November or December.
Does that mean no one has it, or
They said that's when they're planning on restoring to the outlying areas, which means like Sanibel, Captiva.
Yeah, I found those
Line Island.
websites to be pretty generic. Yeah, I'm
That was
just
pretty
curious if anybody's had any reports of that.
Counselor Underhill, can I just,
Yeah,
before you
please.
move on to your next item,
Yeah.
because it pertains to what you're already
Yeah,
asking
please,
about. Is there a way, Roger, that we can streamline the process of getting the power turned back on? It seems like if for a homeowner, it's difficult when their electricians say that they've sent it into the town, and then the town tells us that they've sent it into FPL, and then FPL says they haven't received anything. And it for a homeowner, it can be very difficult to figure out. Is there a way that we can integrate a homeowner into the email chain if so they can kind of see an idea of where it is? Because it can get very cumbersome to have to go to 3 different entities to find out why their power isn't being turned on in a timely fashion.
Okay. Well, I think I know the case you're talking about, and the power request was sent to FP&L, and they contacted us over the weekend, and we resent it again.
Mhm.
And the simple answer to your question is, when you send in both pieces of paper, if you don't have your power on in 72 hours, let us know. That means that something may have got missed, your paperwork may have got filed to the wrong property, FPL may have been notified, and in their assigning trucks, they may have missed it. A lot of things can happen. We've had several cases where FP&L was given to go ahead, and for some reason they didn't get to it. There was, you're supposed to do it tonight, ran out of time, forgot to pick it up the next morning, or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to speak for them, but I could tell you that they're public records, the emails to FP&L authorizing them to turn on the power. So it's not like we're placing a phone call or writing it on the back of a post-it note and handing it to them. It's being emailed to them, so there is a record.
Yeah.
So all that being said, I can talk to the staff and see if we can paste in the requester's email address when we send the email to FP&L.
If they want, yeah. And this is certainly not a blaming thing. It's just to try to streamline it a little bit for both staff and for the residents to be able to have a one-stop shop, if you will, to say, where are we at in this process, and not have to go to 3 different entities.
Right. Well, I will relate to you that, and I'm not trying to cast any dispersions on anybody, but when we met with FP&L on Friday, this past Friday, they were amazed at how many people that had been hooked up already, and the system that was put in place to effectuate that. So we continue to try to do better, because that's our motto, to always try to do better. But we follow up on every single case when someone says, it's been a couple of days and I haven't got my power, what's going on?
Okay, that's all I needed. So they have the direction to, if within 72 hours they don't receive power, then to contact the town.
Yeah, I mean, I would urge them to read their reports, make sure their electrician said that they could receive power, but assuming that, yes.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Jim.
I'll ask this question again, and I don't expect you to know this, but you hear a lot of things being sort of the CEO of the town. Have you heard, if it's more and more people are staying on the island, have you heard, are they able to order things through Amazon, FedEx, and or UPS and have them delivered?
My understanding that deliveries are starting. We had a meeting about that on Friday. They're also reaching out to them directly to see if we can, facilitate that. But as of today, I don't have a clear answer. Amazon, yes. FedEx, no. Post office, yes. But we've asked post office to set up a local post office. I know that's in the works. And we have someone who's been tasked to start reaching out to the various delivery companies to see if they're ready or willing to start making deliveries.
I'm just curious if you, because you're in all these meetings, have you heard anything about Publix and or CVS as to their timelines?
I have not heard from CVS. I heard that Publix is roughly trying for the beginning of the year.
Beginning of the year? All right, thank you.
Before the beginning of the year, I should say.
Before the beginning of the year. Could you talk a little bit about, and this may be, I mean, it's a broader issue because I know the governor's addressed it and there's a process, but I think this is more specific to the actual dredging of canals. There's obviously a lot of debris in the canals as well, but there's also some sand and so forth in the canals. Is the dredging concept, is that a longer term challenge? Is the initial challenge to get the debris out first and then discuss potential dredging? And also, I've heard a lot of people talk about the beach itself and that there's debris in the sand and that if we don't get to that debris quickly, it'll be engulfed and consumed by the sand and then potentially surface later. Just your thoughts on those issues?
Okay, with respect to the debris in the canals, there was a contract signed last week by the state to begin to deal with that issue. That's not dredging, that's to remove debris from the canals. And those will be publicly owned waterways. As it pertains to the debris on the beach, we have raised that as an issue to the state. What the state has basically said that the public lands part of it is a clear issue. They're looking at what to do about the privately owned portions of the beach. And it may very well follow suit, and this is just me speculating, of how they're dealing with private property and commercial property now, but they haven't fully explored that and made a determination yet.
Have they made a determination? Is it safe on the beach? If folks wanted to go out and have a beach cleanup, would that be a safe thing to do at this point in time? Is that something we should be encouraging people to do?
I don't think it's the state's issue per se. It would be a local issue for us to determine that. My understanding is that we have people who want to do that because they want to do something to help, and everyone loves the beach. However, I think I'm going to go back to Council Beach's comment. I think some of the things that we're talking about are bigger than volunteer removal issue. It would probably require mechanical removal. So we're looking at, if we can, and this is yet to be determined, if we can hook up the state with people who have worked on our beach mechanically in the past because they know our beach well, and to see if we can facilitate some type of agreement where these folks can be put to work to do the heavy lifting on the beach, and then that would be followed by the volunteer effort to get the smaller stuff that they can't get in a perfect plan.
I think that would be great.
But I've been talking to people about too, and I mean, things like Keep Lee Beautiful. There are organizations that can do this. I'm just really concerned about water quality. I've been told that if they wear rubber gloves under work gloves, but then if someone has a cut on their leg or something like this, it can just be, I think, dangerous right now to be out doing that kind of stuff on the beach. But the beach needs a cleanup.
I'm just curious, Roger. The town is contracted with an engineering firm for the beach renourishment, who is excellent. And I'm curious if you've had a chance to talk to him about what the hurricane did to the beach and what impact it's had on the beach. And is he giving you an assessment, a rough assessment as to what he's seen post Hurricane Ian, and how it respects to renourishment as we go forward?
Well, we have asked him to look at the original profile that he surveyed, the design profile, and the effects of the storm. And at the appropriate time, we'll sit down with the state and FEMA and show that information to them and see if we could figure out a way to, I guess, appropriate the cost based on the storm, based upon what we were going to do initially, and what the design profile for the beach is and see if we can come to some agreement as to how to address that issue.
I'll just add a little bit to that, Jim, if
Yeah,
I may.
please.
That's Mike Poff we're talking about, right? The engineer?
Yes.
So Mike was actually in the camp, it seems to me now, it was like a couple of weeks ago, with a whole team of people. And they went out on the beach and did some surveys and so forth. So I'm sure he took a lot of that information back to his office and is coming up with some redos and so forth, or whatever he's going to do back there. But to answer the question, they're on it. He's been out here. He's on
Right,
top of it.
he's documented it.
Pardon me?
You're correct, Mr. Mayor. He's documented
Yes.
the original profile of the existing beach prior to the storm, the design profile, which was part of our beach redevelopment project, and the further impact of Hurricane Ian. So he has all three data sets. The question now becomes is who's going to pay how much for each of those restorations.
And those are points all well taken. I guess I was curious, has he conveyed to either you, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Town Manager, has he conveyed to you sort of a back of the envelope sort of reaction as to, oh my gosh, things are horrific or things aren't as bad as I thought? As he's given you at least a thumbnail sketch as to what his impressions were? Or do you want to, is it too?
Well,
too
it hasn't
early?
really. I mean, I don't even know if I saw him again after that,
Okay.
that brief encounter, but I'm sure we'll be hearing from him.
Yeah, I don't.
No.
I think he hasn't sort of put an adjective on it.
All right.
If that's your question, but I think he. We could safely say that there's going to be some complicated funding approach to renourishment at some point, as soon as we can get past some of the more pressing issues we have in front of us. But we'll be sitting down with the state and FEMA and figuring that as well as we cross into the project worksheet. And this is where you get pre-approval for FEMA to do something, part of the process, and hazard mitigation down the road.
And lastly, is it your intention, Mr. Town Manager, to address the questions that were made during the public comment period?
I can do
during
that
your
right
session?
now if you'd like.
However you want to handle it. I just want to make sure those get covered.
I have them here. So, with respect to the Warners and the 50-50 rule, I think the best thing for us to do is just have a sidebar conversation with them.
You on the 50% rule. And I think the town's done a nice job of codifying its position on that. But for those who are listening, you hear all these conversations around Lee County about various numbers. The town's decided upon 20%, and you're hearing all these different numbers bantied about. Does FEMA, I'm just curious, a lot of people ask me, a lot of this is for the town to remain in compliance with FEMA, which I understand and respect. Is it your opinion, or based upon your conversations with FEMA, that they're eventually going to lay down the law and say, come on, you can't do 30%, you can't do 40%, we're going to reject this. There needs to be some uniformity. It just seems odd that every community is allowed to have a different number, and we're all trying to comply with FEMA. Has FEMA opined at all as to what's going to be, what they're going to tolerate and what they're not going to tolerate based upon your conversations?
Well, I could tell you I raised that exact issue with the state emergency manager and said that we can't get into a situation where it's, can you top this? So city A says it's X and city B wants to be better in their mind, and they come up with Y, and city C says, well, I'm going to top both of you and come up with Z. So I've said to them that we really need to bring this issue to a close. And I think it's adversely affecting people's ability to make decisions and move forward, because some of them may be hoping that there will be a better answer in 2 weeks than there is today. And all of that's counterproductive to the overall restoration process. So what I believe the case is going to be that our standard is probably going to remain at the higher end of the scale when all is said and done. And since it was something we already had in place, I think we're okay with FEMA because we didn't make it looser. So I think we're okay, but I wouldn't recommend that you go to 21%, for example, because then you would have changed what we had in place. But if by some way, shape, or form, somebody else goes to 21%, then I would say it would be, appropriate for the council to revisit it. You may recall when this first came up, I said that we could wait 2 weeks and see what everyone does, or we could do what we want to do today. And the council took the position, well, we want to do what we could do today because people need clarity. And I agree with that. So now we're in that 2 week period or so where we're seeing what other people may or may not do. I suspect that they're all going to be counseled to keep whatever they had in place, but we'll see.
Just
Thank you.
because a point on that, because I know that before this, we were one of the more permissive municipalities with the 50% per permit as opposed to every 5 years. I think I heard that Cape Coral was going to change to go from 5 years to permit by permit. You heard that, Roger?
I've heard a lot of sort of statements made, but not a decision made by any political body that they're going to change anything yet. So, being the time of year that we're in, there's a lot of people who are saying a lot of things. And all I said to the state is, look, we need to bring this to a closure so people can make decisions, because in some cases they're making irrevocable decisions about what they're going to do, and not feel that they made a decision and then had the rug pulled out from underneath their feet 2 or 3 weeks later by the rules of the game changing. So I encouraged him to call the folks in Lee County and elsewhere and bring this issue to a close as soon as possible.
Roger, before you move on, to get back to what the initial thing was, I believe it was the Horners that brought it up. I don't know if it's specifically an issue that's specific to them. If my understanding was correct, it was essentially that the repair form is the repair form that's on the town's website. Is that the one that's going to be used for any general contractor or homeowner that wants to be their GC moving forward? Is that the form that they can now proceed with?
So the form shows the format, and it can be used as the form if they want to use that as a form. General contractors, most time, they have their own way of doing estimating because they're preparing a proposal to a property owner. But basically, it's to put the property back into pre-storm condition, all the costs associated with that. There's no savings per se from sweat equity. And the idea is not to have repetitive losses. So we make sure that the damages and the estimate are consistent with one another. And obviously, the closer you get to 50%, the more scrutiny you get.
Would it be good to advise them that to be as detailed, obviously, as possible if you are going to be the GC, whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring an outside contractor to come in and do it, you're just overseeing it, be as detailed as possible to make it easier for town staff and FEMA and everybody else that's going to be looking at it?
Well, I would say this. I think you're correct, but I think the other thing I would say is that if you're rounding off the corners, you're just hurting yourself. Okay, so what happens is the first tier level of sort of punishment, if you will, is you don't get flood insurance. The highest level of punishment is the town can't get flood insurance, second, that would be like the second tier. The third tier is that if there's a future hurricane, FEMA will not give us any money. So that's the tiers of punishment that we're potentially looking at if we are not diligent in our compliance.
And I appreciate that, but I think if the town would, if someone fills out this form and turns it in before they get their permit, the town's going to vet that out.
It's a precursor to getting a permit.
Right. So hopefully that we would be able to tell them this, we know you're not buying sheetrock for $2 a sheet. So you're sending in your permit for 1,000 square foot home and you're only putting $1,000 into sheetrock. We're going to know that that's not.
Yeah. Everything we're trying to do procedurally is to help people not spend money and then have wasted that money by having to redo stuff. So as I said, to round off the corners only hurts yourself if you do that. And that's whether you hire an electrician and spend a lot of money to fix your electricity to find out that you don't meet the 50% rule, you're going to wind up tearing a lot of that stuff back out. So you just have to take the time and figure out really whether it really is appropriate for you to build under the current code or not.
Hopefully that answered your question.
But if people have individual questions, we'll do what we can to help them. All right, so Ms. Lowry asked about the temporary use for RVs and trailers. So what we were trying to say in the form, and maybe we didn't use perfect language, was that if you can't park it parallel, you have to give us a site plan. If you can't park it parallel, you don't have to give us a site plan. And the reason for the site plan is to address the exact conflicts that she said that there was a potential of. So if you have a big trailer and you can't fit it across as described on the form, then you do have to submit a site plan, and we have to review it just to make sure you don't create an impossible situation for one of your neighbors. So that's part A. Part B is it's supposed to be a wheeled vehicle, and I assume in some cases people will put down leveling jacks or something like that, and those could be on a hard surface. Our concern is that if you're not on some type of hard surface, that if you do have a leak of one type or another, that doesn't go into the ground, and that's the reason for the tarp. So our preference is that you be on a hard surface, if you can be on a hard surface. And if you can't, because you can't fit the trailer on your property, to at least put a tarp underneath. So if you do have a spill of some type, it's not going directly into the ground, which is your own property for your own protection. And then the Seigers were asking about which trades are allowed to be done by owner builders and which are not. Typically, I don't know if I can recite them all off the top of my head, but I can tell you things, for example, like electricity, you need a licensed electrician, and there are others. And I believe those are on our website based on what Council Adderhold asked us to do a year and a half ago, whatever it was. So, but if they have specific questions, we'll be glad to have a sidebar with them and see if we can get them some answers.
That's got all of your,
That's what I jotted down. And if there's someone else has a note that I missed,
that's enough.
please let me know.
All right, thank you. I'll go next. At the beginning of this event, right after the storm, I was quoted a lot as I was quoting actually Churchill, Winston Churchill, when he said, "When you're going through hell, keep going." I said it more than once, and we're past that now. We've been through hell, and we're moving on. So now, just to keep that analogy going, we're sort of in purgatory now. So that's the next step to trying to get back to this what we call paradise down here. So, well, all right, let's not get too technical. Thank you. But these are very general terms, Vice Mayor. So anyhow, we're in that stage now where, we've gone through the initial shock of it. So we're in the rebuilding stage. And what I want the council to, I brought this up at the last meeting, but I want to reiterate again today. We need a plan, and we need goals. And I'm just going to throw out a goal here this morning that the town of Fort Myers Beach can be rebuilt in 5 years. 5 years. That should be, that's a good goal. That's a good goal. Now, with that goal in mind, it doesn't do us any good if we don't have a plan. We have a firm right now that's working with us on our comprehensive plan and land development code. That's Eddie and his firm. But
Calvin Giordano.
Pardon me?
Calvin Giordano.
Okay. And I'd like to have them come back in and pardon me?
Cordino, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'd like to have Eddie come back in here, maybe at our next meeting or whenever he can get in here and and tell us where we are with that process, and also to see if he has any interest in doing some more planning for us. But what I'd really like to do is to get for the town to put out an RFP for planners, so we can get a big picture of what's going to happen here in the next couple of years. I mean, the five of us all have ideas and so forth, and everybody in town has an idea, but we really need someone to help facilitate that for us, and that's what these design and plan firms do. They can go out throughout the town and they can take an inventory. They can tell us where we are right now, and give us possibilities of what we can do to rebuild the town. That would be extremely beneficial to us here, and so I would like to get that process started now, because it's not too early. If the goal is 5 years and we prolong this another couple of weeks or another month or so, we're that much farther down the road to the 5 years. So as soon as we can get this, now that doesn't mean just because we put out a request for proposals that we have to immediately enter into a contract with someone. It just means we're starting the process of gathering information to see who's out there and who may be interested in doing this. I've brought this up before. There's an excellent firm, and I'm just using them as an example because I'm familiar with them and we worked with them in the past. We worked with them on Times Square, Old San Carlos Boulevard, and they're a very big firm in the state of Florida, and they've done work elsewhere. And it's Victor Dover with Dover Cole and Associates. They're familiar with our island. They've worked here, and they would be a good candidate. And that's someone that I would ask to particularly invite to give us a proposal. But if we can put it out to other firms and start getting a list of interested people to give us some ideas. The whole idea with these design firms is not only to show us where we are, but how to do that. I don't expect this running again, which ironically is where we had the first set of charrettes, these planning sessions where the planners will come in and they'll put 50 or 100 easels out there on the floor, the gymnasium floor, and give everybody a Sharpie or a crayon or whatever and just say, have at it. Put your ideas down on those easels and of how you want this town to look in 5 years. And because we're very interested in what you have to say. So the process starts, everybody gets out there and does it, and it starts out here like this, and starts coming in like this, starts coming in like this, cars coming in. And finally, we have a product where we have consensus among the town, not just the town council, but amongst the town. When that final plan is achieved, then of course the town council would have to put that in motion. But it's through the cooperation of the town. I want us, we, the town, to be involved in this mighty project that we're embarking on, because it is a mighty project. These are unheard of events for us, and we're doing the best we can right now to clean it up. But cleaning it up is the easy part. It doesn't seem like it right now, but it is. And the real challenge is going to be the rebuild, how we're going to build back better, stronger. People come up all the time and say, we don't want to be Naples, or we don't want to be, like the East Coast and this and that. Now, I mean, they've always said that, but now in particular, I'm hearing from a lot of people with those types of comments. And my answer is always the same. I don't either. I mean, I think everybody in this room and everybody out there listening right now can agree that we love Fort Myers Beach the way it is, the way it was. And that's how we want to return it. Now, is it going to be a little different? Of course. That'll be dictated by FEMA and other organizations and so forth about how some of this rebuilding goes on. but we can still retain the small town character that we all love here on the beach. We can still be the neighborly place that we've all come to love. But that's the process. That's the process to be inclusive about that. And that's my hope, is that the rest of the council agrees with me, and we can start this process and get this process going, because it's not too early. It's time. It's time to be thinking about the cleanup will go on. It'll go on for a long time, but we can't lose time just worrying about cleanup when we have to be thinking about the future. That time is now. So we have to do that. So I'm going to ask Roger if you'll do that, and with the blessing of the rest of the council, put out those RFPs and see if we can't get this process started.
I just have a couple questions for you, Mayor. One is, well, how is that different than what we get from Sarah and Jason?
Well,
people we have on staff now. You're trying to be more visionary as opposed to.
Yeah, it is, Bill. It's more visionary, and I mean, these are not to say that we don't have very good people on staff, because we do, but they're more particular to the sites. These are the big picture people that look at the whole island. And by the way, that one firm I keep talking about, they're already familiar with the island, but they have the experience in coming into an area, as I say, inventorying it. They'll do the aerials, they'll do this, they'll do that, and then they'll get a picture, and then they start thinking about the big picture, and they give that to us, and then we proceed from there. But frankly, I'm not to put our staff down, but it's probably more than we should lay on them.
I think that I would agree if it would expedite things, because I think, really one of our jobs is our primary jobs is to be forward looking. I mean, if people want information, there's town staff, there's numerous channels to get that. I appreciate the questions that are difficult to answer that keep coming back. But I think that, you're right, Mayor, that we really have to be looking down the road. I also would want to ask you, because I know that I've been here and I met I think we probably all have met the Panama City people, the mayor. I've read interviews from the mayor of Mexico Beach, and they've had a similar experience. And I know that they've done some things that I thought were pretty interesting. That could you maybe opine on some of the things that they've said that you took as lessons for us going forward?
Well, without getting too in the weeds with all the particulars, but they did. They had all kinds of things that they came up with, different ideas about how they could do this. Mexico Beach was really, I mean, they put it to their people, and they decided that they were not only going to build up, but they were going to exceed it by I don't know, it was a couple of 100%. I mean, the incident commanders can tell us, the incident management people can tell us.
I think you heard they went with a 250-year flood.
Yeah, 250-year. I mean, they really.
2 feet.
Sorry?
Plus 2 feet.
Plus 2 feet. Yeah, plus 2 feet. But so they really exceeded it. But without belaboring this, but there were other things that they did up there that. And I can get back to you with a whole list of those, but I can't recall them all right now.
I think one thing I heard in Mexico Beach was after 3 years after the storm, they still didn't have a restaurant reopened. And here we are a month later, the first restaurant reopening here.
Well, that's right. And I was informed this morning that Yucatan is getting ready to come back online. I know the folks down at Wahoo Willie's and Snug Harbor, they're looking to get those restaurants up and running along with their food truck somewhere else. And so there's progress being made, but that's all good, and as a matter of fact, it's excellent. But it's part of our initial recovery. But what I'm speaking of is what we have to be thinking about for the future. Anything else, Bill?
Roger, I got a couple questions for you on this. I certainly think this is a great idea, and as you said, we've all talked to those two gentlemen who were very enlightening in some of the things that they did. Would this be something that would fall under reimbursement from FEMA?
No.
It would not. It would be something that the town would have to outlay and not get back.
Yes.
I thought when I was speaking to them that they made it sound that they were reimbursed, as well as the firm that they hired to oversee the dotting of the I's and the crossing of the T's, if you will, for all the FEMA paperwork that they were reimbursed. Was I mistaken?
It's different.
Well, there is a administrative reimbursement that's part of the for each FEMA project. That comes back to town. How you expend that FEMA administrative reimbursement is up to the town council. In their case, they may have taken that money and used it to pay for a long-range planner. They may have used it to pay for the people who helped them in getting their FEMA reimbursement. So it's just really a matter of how you deploy that 5% that FEMA typically pays on each project.
Okay. Well, I would certainly support putting out an RFP to bring in someone like you said, Victor Dover, to assist in the future.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on, I'm going to pass it to the vice mayor next. Do we have consensus to move forward with such a?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
If could I just
Yes,
say
sir.
just one? It's a nuance, Mr. Mayor, but I think it's so important. And I don't think you meant to say this, but I think it's so important that we're very careful that we don't say publicly, I don't mind having a 5-year plan for long. Long-term, it's a great concept, but I think we need to be very careful island, but we need to make sure we commit to the public that we're going to have this island rebuilt in 2 years, worst case scenario, and best case scenario 1 year. There needs to be a sense of urgency about the rebuild because we're sending a message to everybody who's considering whether they're going to stay on our island or not, whether they're going to visit our island. It's such an important nuance that if people are told that it's going to take 5 years to, and I know you didn't mean this, but if people are told it's going to take 5 years to rebuild Fort Myers Beach, that's going to impact, I think, adversely people's morale and also their decision whether they return to our island. So I hope publicly our goal is, and quite frankly, I believe this, that we can rebuild this island within, again, best case scenario 1 year, worst case scenario 2 years. And we can have some longer term plans, that's fine, but it's so important that we let people know that there's a sense of urgency about rebuilding this island. And I just want to make sure that didn't get lost in this conversation or misconstrued, I guess is a better way to say it. And I know it wasn't purposeful, but
Well,
that's all I've got.
And I do think, listening to the Panama City and reading about Mexico Beach is that they said the residential was the first thing to come back. And a lot of that residential came back as vacation rentals. But, there's obviously this place isn't waiting 5 years. So it really depends on where you draw that line. Things like Times Square and the V Zone, that's going to be tricky to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah.
And that'll take a while. But then things like you look at Margaritaville, that was 18 years after Charlie. Out of nothing the town did, the owners of the land held on to it. So there are some people that are going to have land that they're going to wait on.
Jim, I admire your enthusiasm always. But when I said 5 years, I was trying to be realistic. If we should happen to get it done prior to that, that's fine. I think, I can be a little prone to hyperbole once in a while myself. It's just it's part of my ancestry. But if we come in lower than that, well, God bless us all. That's fantastic. But I do try to be realistic when it comes to big things like that. And I'm sure that we'll have more input from the professionals when we get going as to timelines and so forth. But I do appreciate your enthusiasm, and somewhere in between there would be just fine with me. Vice Mayor.
My concerns have been previously addressed.
Very good. Councilman Allers.
Most of mine have been covered as well. I just have one. We've probably all seen, we've got a couple of emails from some people that they're referring to them as sand looters. They have holes in their property or joint properties that are on one parcel that, the storm obviously created some sinkholes or created some difficulties in their property. And they had the sand there, but it's been taken off their land. And will it be returned? They have questions. If they have a hole and they had sand and it was taken off their land, will it be returned to their land?
Well, the answer to that is we just don't know, to be perfectly honest with you. The county is doing a sand reclamation project, and how much sand they will reclaim and how much of it will meet their needs and how much surplus they might have after that is all yet to be determined. Along with the issue we discussed earlier with respect to Mike Poth and the original design and the post-storm design, surveying and our restoration project and how all those pieces fit together, including the situation that you're just describing. We just don't know just yet. It's on our list of things to try to flush out, but I don't anticipate an answer for that in the very short term. It'll be something that's probably more 90 days out.
Okay.
So Dan, just kind of a clarification. So you're talking about people that had like sand removed as part of debris removal and getting the sand back? Or are you talking people who are taking like neighbors taking neighbor sand?
No, it's what it sounded like to me was that the storm had moved sand from one part of their property to another part of their property, and maybe it was too close to the right of way and it was picked up, but they said they're coming in at night and they're scooping it up in dump trucks and hauling it away. So I guess I don't know the specific answer if it's something coordinated by us.
Right. So there is an effort to segregate from the debris, the household construction debris, the sand for the purposes of then seeing if that sand can be screened and reutilized. So that's going on. So there is people who are coming, official people who are coming in and trying to reclaim the sand from that's being piled on the right of way and reutilize that. And that's part of that project that's being done that I mentioned by the county, I believe it is, to reclaim that sand and replace it. I don't believe they're saying, well, we found 3 yards in front of Dan Aller's house, so when we're done putting it through the screens, we're going to give Dan Aller's three yards back. That's the part I can't answer at this point.
Okay. I will send them your direction for more input because I don't have all the details. It was just I had a couple of
I
different
believe
people
I saw one email that had a similar question.
That's all I got for now.
All right. We'll go on to the next item, which is local planning agency appointments. This is to appoint members to the for the fiscal year 2022-2023 local planning agency, what we call the LPA. So I've got a note in front of me that says Butch Kritzer has withdrawn. I think Butch moved away. Forrest. And there's also a note here that Douglas Ekman is not sure of what his status will be. So am I to believe then that the rest of the members wish to be reappointed? Is that?
I haven't heard from anybody else except those two.
So is Doug Ekman saying that he does not want to serve? He's not up for, so he's not putting his name up for reappointment?
Doug Ekman is unsure if he's coming back to the island. He is currently residing in his second home in Estero.
Okay. Well, we'll wait to hear. So we're really not ready to do anything yet if we haven't heard from the other members, right? Is that right? Okay.
I've heard.
I would move that we appoint the people who have applied. If it turns out that they are not interested in serving, they can withdraw or resign. I'd like to keep the components of the LPA full enough that they can be taking action. if
And I
necessary.
would second that. And I have heard from a number of those members who do want to be reappointed.
Okay, good. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Okay, the next item is final public comment. Is there anybody that wishes to comment? Yes, sir.
There is some.
Doctor.
Great. My name is Dr. John Albert, and I used to reside at 19 Palmview Boulevard. down in Fairview Isles. I have a number of questions or comments, and I would like to start off by asking, once again, a lot of information comes down the lane, and one piece of information that keeps coming back, recirculating, is that FEMA will assist some of the private residences if they want to remove their homes, that they are considering a policy of coming in to remove the home for that resident. Is there any truth to that, or have you heard anything about that? Because I've called everybody, all the disaster reliefs. I called FEMA. Nobody knows, but I keep hearing this recirculate through the community. So is that going to occur?
I'll answer that, which is unusual, Doctor, but I'll answer it for you. Just to, there's that website that I keep pushing people to, that iandebriscleanup.com. You have to get on that, and then we have received a waiver from FEMA where they are going to go on private property and remove debris from private property, which also includes knocking down your house, I've been told, and carting it away. Also, any other titled property, cars, boats, this and that on your private property.
I called that number, not to interject.
It's not a number.
Well, I spoke with people from that agency, and they said it is only titled vehicles and titled ownership property.
Roger, you want to add anything to that, or you don't have a mic, but you can go up there. Yeah. All right.
Okay, the answer is that FEMA will remove, are you talking about a structure that's on your property?
A home.
Yes. So you have to sign on at iandebriscleanup.com. Okay, and they're going to ask you for a right of entry to go on your property along with some other documentation. At the end of the day, they will come in and remove that. And they will, just to be clear, write this part down.
I'm going to.
They will make a claim against your insurance company for some of the costs.
Okay. Very good.
And I think it's important, if I may, to add that I've had people contact me that have sent in their forms to the iandebriscleanup.com on Tuesday and asking why they haven't gotten a response back on Friday. So it's going to take a little time. You got to be patient, but they will get back to you.
I've also heard that some of those end up in the spam folder, some of the replies. So it's good to check your spam folder if you haven't heard back.
Right. So clearly, from the efficiency of the operation, if you live on a particular street and your house A, they don't want to come knock down a house on A and then leave that street and then come back a week later and do another house on that same street. So they're going to take the time and organize these requests so that when they hit a street, hopefully they can hit as many properties on that same street for efficiency of operation. So it's not a first come, first served type situation. They have your request if you completed all your paperwork, and they will schedule your particular street when they feel that they're not going to hear from anybody else on that particular street.
What else do you have, Doctor?
Great. Next thing. Next whispering down the lane. I hear, and this is a big part of the decision whether to rebuild or build anew, that if you do rebuild your existing structure, that you will not be available to receive flood insurance for 5 years on that structure. Has anybody heard anything about that? Because that's running bare naked for 5 years against any water damage is a big roll of the dice.
You know what, Doctor? Because of the time right now, I'm gonna let the staff.
All right. The next thing about rebuilding it all, I have had 3 electricians out to my property. I have a swing between top bids on the property, if you will, of $6,000 as to what they're going to do for my electrical. My suggestion is, why don't you consider something like a triage so that people can get up and get going, and offer 3 quickie permits or 2 quickie permits. One, an electrical permit that puts an RV or some sort of temporary housing on a property with a 50 amp or a 30 amp or whatever you need. That's permit number 1. Permit number 2, a sub panel with a couple of boxes on it, 2 or 3, so that a contractor can come in, start his work outside or inside the house or wherever you want to. That's quickie permit number 2, without involving the structure at all. You've got brand new electrical at those 2 points. Number 3, the permit would be to do whatever you want to do, which would take more time to review by your committees or whoever it is doing this, to review the electrical plan for that structure. But at least the property owners can get quick electrical out there at a uniform price. We can know that, well, throwing a quick 3-box sub panel up is going to cost me $750 or $1,000 or whatever it's going to cost. And that's pretty much throughout the island. We know what we're facing. We're not facing, am I going to spend $6,000 more on this house or $10,000 more on this house, only later to find out I'm going to knock it down. If I have a sub panel here, I'm going to use it either way. Whether I keep the house or whether I knock it down, that sub panel is going to be very effective for me to use. So those quickie permits would be very sensible for you to consider.
You got to wrap it up, Doc.
Okay, I will wrap it up. And I think as far as the sand goes, my feeling, the residents are going to be the first people coming back. And and I don't have sand requirements, but any resident who needs sand should get it first, because they're the ones bringing people back onto the island and bringing commerce back to the island. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Come on. Come. You have to, yeah, come on up.
Thank you.
Hi.
My name is Marilyn Healy, and I'm a full-time resident of Captain's Bay North. I have a unique problem in that the president of my building will not give me any information. He does not live here, and it doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency for him. He has told me that he has submitted the electrician report, the structural engineer report, and the application. Do those need to be sent in a particular order at the same time? And how can I obtain a copy as an owner?
Roger, you want to answer, Mrs. Healy?
Yeah, Mrs. Healy, I'm going to give you my phone number before I leave, and you can just call me, and I'm going to look into your situation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, you heard all that rumbling out in the kitchen. You're getting hungry. All right. Yes.
I think I can answer the doctor's questions really quick.
Okay.
So flood insurance thing, I haven't heard about, but we will look into that. But it doesn't make any sense to me that they're encouraging you to move up and then they won't insure you. But I will check into that. If you live at the same level, if you meet the 50% rule, I'll look into the repetitive loss language. But I know that they're very concerned about that, but I don't know that by heart to be able to give you an answer today. You need a T-pole for your trailer. You can get one that's totally separate from your structural situation. Okay, with the request for a temporary T-pole for a panel, we just want to be careful that you don't spend good money after bad. And if you want to talk to us about a particular situation at your property, we'd be glad to talk to you about that. Well, the problem is that people, if we give you power and temporary power for your structure, people are going to start repairing things without having the 50% rule analysis. And then we may be in a position to tell you have to tear that down. So we have to think through how we could do that without creating that scenario. So, and the residents of Sand, well, we'll talk to the county about your recommendation about that.
Okay, town managers items. You have anything, Roger?
Okay, well, I think we covered a lot of ground. I just want to tell people that A lot of this information is, we're trying to get it on forums and pushed out through our social media pages and Facebook. As we receive a question via an email that we think has wide-ranging implications, we try to share that answer with everybody under our frequently asked questions. So sometimes you can find an answer there to a question that someone else previously asked. But we continue to get the town up and ready for people to, whether it's restaurants to open. We have a couple others that are planning to open this week. We have 3 resource centers that I believe everyone is aware of. And we're continuing to try to look at alternatives to set up a more permanent town hall versus trailers and tents. I also want to just thank the folks from Jacksonville who have come down. Some of them are here today, who have come down to help us. We really appreciate it. And you just help us have a force multiplier with our staff to get things done more quickly, and we sincerely appreciate that. So I think that's it for me for today, unless there's any further specific questions.
Thank you, sir.
Before you move on, now we had talked about, you put up the possibility of using the Bay Oaks gym for a town hall. Have you made any more work on analyzing that and coming up with prices?
Well, the answer is we're going to have to bid that work. So we're going to have to bid that work out. So I've been told that we will have a scope of work completed today, and we'll put out a bid with your consent, and we'll tell you what that number is when we get the bid prices back, and you'll tell us whether or not you want us to proceed or not.
And those could very well be reimbursable expenses, correct?
Yes, depending upon what's included, I would think the vast majority of that would be reimbursable.
All right, thank you. Town attorney?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. Council members' items and reports. Have we covered the waterfront yet? Or Bill, do you have anything?
I think we've covered everything.
Jim?
All my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Same here. Vice Mayor? Councilman?
For the sake of time, I'll save it till the next one.
There you go. Okay, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion, any objection? We're adjourned at 10:37. Thank you all for coming, and grab a lunch. Music starts at 1. No.
For just 60